What is going on, everybody? I am doing something a little bit different today. This is literally one of my most asked for videos in the comments, and it's my settings for the Helix 7. I've been using the digital flasher now, probably the LCD flasher for, I believe, 2, maybe 3 years now. I've used the ICE 35, the ICE 45, the ICE 55. I had a Markham LX5 for a while. The only unit I haven't used was the Vexlar units, so I've kind of used at least some of them. I did use the mechanical, like I said, for a long time, but I switched over to the LCD units here the last couple years. When they first came out, I found they were very, very laggy, and I wasn't a big fan of them. But over the past couple years, they've definitely tweaked things up, and I'm addicted to the Helix ICE 7 here. I guess it's not technically the ICE 7, it's just a Helix 7 that you can use in the summer mode or the ice fishing mode. And I'm gonna go through some of my settings right now, how you can try to get the most out of it for your fishing. Obviously, every lake's gonna be a little bit different. You always have to fine tune things just a little bit. For the most part too, you can also use the factory settings, but we'll go through it here really quick. We'll fire up the unit. As it's firing up here, you can see I have it actually connected to a Markham shuttle. This is for lithium battery purposes, basically. When I fish outside and film all day, these batteries right here, they go quick, they go dead quick. Pretty much no matter what you're gonna use them on, obviously a mechanical flasher, but as soon as you start running GoPros and your lights and all that, I've also switched over recently to the Dakota power pack. And this right here is what it's all about. If you are going to run a unit like this, I recommend getting the Dakota the Dakota lithium batteries. These things are 3.1 pounds versus 3 pounds 1 ounce versus 5 pound 10 ounces. So not quite half the weight, but will last double the time for sure. So the unit's kind of fired up here. I'm in summer mode right now, and what I'm going to do right now, just normal screen fired up to, hit menu, then you go all the way to your left hand side here. Sometimes it'll start you right there automatically, but on the Sonar here, go down to ice fishing, and you can see there's a little arrow there for over, and you're going to hit it. And now what's going to happen is going to ask you, do you want to turn on the ice fishing mode? And if you do, the unit will shut itself off and it'll reset. So that's the first thing you're going to do when you're starting to use your unit for the winter, for the ice fishing season. So now it's shutting down, it's going to all reset itself, and once it fires back up, we'll continue talking about it. Okay, so the unit's just fired up. You can see here, you have to hit the exit button within the 30 seconds. That's probably the most annoying feature because a lot of times it's nice to be able to turn it on and kind of walk away. Keep that in mind. You have 30 seconds to kind of hit your exit mode, the exit button before you get back to it. So first things you hear is fire up. It's got the flasher. It's going to ask you if you want to use your auto chart card. Yes, of course you do. We're going to go into the straight flasher mode right here. So I'm going to come into my menu. Your gain is what's going to be basically your sensitivity in the water column. If you fish smaller jigs, you're going to have to turn your gain up a little bit. You're going to always have to kind of fine tune your gain a little bit. Sometimes I find myself I'm on 3-4 gain. Sometimes I'm on like the highest power, 17, 18. It's all going to depend what you're doing. You kind of have to make those adjustments as you go. Your chirp IR, you're going to want to turn that puppy on. Now you're going to have 6 settings for your chirp. And what this is going to do is basically different frequencies so you can eliminate some of the clutter that you might have from other units around. You can kind of play around with that. Plus, your chirp IRs 1, 3, and 5 are going to be a narrower cone angle. If you're not familiar with what that is, a narrower cone angle basically means you're going to see less of the bottom than when you would if you had a wider cone angle. So if you're in 20 feet of water and your cone angle's at 20 degrees, you know you're going to get whatever it is, that 4 or 5 foot pattern on the bottom, whereas it was 15 degrees, you know, you're going to get a 2-3 foot pattern on the bottom. And of course, it's always going to be different for what depth you're in, but you can fool around with that a little bit. When you're fishing steeper structure, something that drops off really quick, your narrower cone angles are going to be better. When you're fishing more of a flat bottom, your bigger cone angles are what you're going to want. So I run, it depends. Lots of times I run the 2 or the 4 or the 6. I run mostly the bigger cone angles just because if there is a little bit of a dead zone, and what a dead zone is maybe you can mark the bottom but you can't quite pick up your jig because it's marking a rock, or maybe that drop off that I talked about, and as soon as you get above it you'll start to mark it. That isn't always a big thing for me because I'm also running an underwater camera a lot of the times, and I cover the bottom at 4 or 5 feet with the underwater camera, and then I use the rest of it with the Humminbird. So that's what your chirp's all about right there. And then if you come back into there again, your cone angle, actually, you don't adjust that when your chirp is on. Your chirp will dictate what your cone angle is going to be. Your lower range. This is something I think a lot of people don't use, and this is what is going to increase the most out of your unit because it's always jumping around on you. Maybe it's not, you're not using the full dial. And I'm going to try to be putting pictures up on the side here. But when you use the auto feature here, say you're fishing in 23 feet of water, you want to turn your lower range to 24 or 25 feet, whatever it is like that. So say just a couple feet deeper than your what your actual depth is. What that's going to do is you're going to get the most usage out of your dial right there. Now, if you put on the auto, as your transducer kind of swings around a little bit sometimes, you're going to find your bottom is going to jump around all the time. It's not going to be very, very stable. So use the lower range. Definitely just set it up all the time for wherever it is, because if you're not hole hopping a lot, it's not that big of a deal. Of course, if you're sitting there, it's like easy, fire your depth, 24 feet, no problem. If you are hole hopping, it's obviously one more thing you got to change consistently, but it is going to increase things for sure. Your surface clutter, I don't really use that a bit. It's been sitting on 6 for me for the whole year. Haven't touched it once. Probably not going to have to mess around with that a lot. The flasher style, this is one I get a lot of questions about lately because everybody's like, how come your marks and your lure all look different? You have 2 flasher styles. You have your full color, which I should have some video of right here. What this is when your lure or a fish, it's going to have the bar that kind of expands the whole dial, the whole, I don't know the proper word for it, but it expands the whole thing. Whereas when you turn into this next mode called the A-scope mode, you're going to turn into a little bit smaller marks. It's not going to expand the whole width of your dial. So now what I like about that is if you have a smaller jig and it's showing up there and a fish comes over top of it, you know that that fish is there. Where sometimes if you have a jig and you're there and you're like, okay, well that fish was just on me, I think it's still there, or is that just my jig? All of a sudden you pull your jig up, you're like, oh, the fish is gone. But if you use that A-scope mode, you know right away that because that bigger mark is sitting over top of your jig, that it's still there. I just started using the A-scope mode this year, and to be honest with you, I just kind of figured it out this year. I wish it's something I figured out, last year, the year before. That has been my favorite feature for sure. I've gotten used to it. Definitely try it out. You might find yourself falling in love with it too. And then the Sonar colors is the next one there. I run mine on 6. That's just a personal preference for whatever you're gonna, you're going to like. Some people like the darker colors, some people like the lighter colors. That's definitely a personal preference for sure. 6 is what I use though. So there you see my settings. Sonar color 6, A-scope mode. My surface clutter bounces around, sometimes 4 to 6, but it's pretty much set on 6 all year. Lower range, don't use the auto. Work on that. Always try to change it. And I explained what the chirp is. 1, 3, 6, 1, 3, 5 is your smaller cone angles. 2, 4, and 6 are your bigger cone angles. And of course the gain. I'll talk just a little bit quickly about some of the other features here that you should change if you're going to use the graph mode. Here, when you go into the split screen, I use a lot of my videos there. I have the flasher on one and then the split screen on the other. Menu, we're going to tap onto the right hand side right now. To the active pane on the left, active pane on the right here. Chart speed, I crank my chart speed all the way up. Other than that in there, all your other functions are pretty much the same, right? Your sonar colors, your surface clutter, your lower range, all that, all your cone angles, your chirp, your gain, all of that is going to kind of feed over to that. So right there is how you can take and use my settings and try to transfer it over to yourself and use it in your situations. Keep in mind that it's going to be different for every lake. Your surface clutter, your gain, you're going to have to mess around with a little bit. And then if you get close to some units, sometimes you got to fool around with your chirp IR and find the different frequencies that are going to kind of eliminate all of the interference it's going to have there. I haven't had any problems with these. I noticed I had the other day, though, I had the Ice 55 out, Carter was using, and I had like my chirp IR on 2, and I changed it to 4, and it was like it shut down all the interference instantly. So you just kind of fool around with everything. And like I said, lithium batteries, this is going to increase everything. You can run all day on this, on the normal battery that comes with it, but you are going to have to turn down your brightness of your screen, which isn't that hard to do. Power button, come down here, light. See, this is on 7, it's pretty bright right there, right? You can see if it's 10, it's ultra bright, but you can run 5 or 4. You're going to get a full day out of that for sure if you turn down your brightness on your screen there. So yeah, there's a lot of other functions I use these for the GPS on the snow machine. of course, but I've been falling in love with the whole LCD units over the last couple of years. I haven't pulled out my Ice 55 for myself yet this year even once, and I don't think I'm going to. And like I said, lithium batteries, you guys, I can't speak enough about these things. The power pack that I just started using too now, this thing's so ideal. You can have a cigarette lighter there, and you can be charging your GoPros, your phones, whatever. You can run the lights from your shack. It's got a little light on it here. It's got everything, and it runs one of these things in there, and I haven't been able to kill this thing in a day yet. So yeah, that's those are my settings. Super quick, I don't know, 8 to 10 minute video, something like that, hopefully. But it'll kind of give you something that you can use for the next time you go out. So thanks for watching, guys. Lots of videos coming out soon. Don't forget, get outside.